gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, welcome back. Welcome back to an Evolved Review. I am your host, James Caleb Kitchens, and I am joined by my co host. Not only is he the voice of Viral Pro Wrestling, not only is he wearing a cool ass Flatline Pro Wrestling t shirt, not only is he the number one consumer of wrestling content in the United States of America, but he is also the host, the proprietor, the namesake of the Stovall Wrestling Network. Caleb Stovall, welcome back.
What's going on? Are you sure I should call you Kitchens or should I call you Road Dog?
Yeah,
or,
that
or should I call you what a lot of people probably refer to you as Mr. Ass?
I actually have answered to that one a few times. Uh, that has happened, but um, with no further ado, I would like to welcome everyone back. This is season 2. As you've noticed, we've changed the format up a little bit, but it's not just the video format that we've changed up. It's not just the video layout. It's that you can now hear these nice, crisp voices pretty much anywhere that you get your podcast from. We are now available in an audio format, something that I've wanted kind of from day one of this. So you can hear us on Anchor. You can hear us on Google Podcasts. You can hear us on Spotify. You can hear us on Radio Public, uh, Stitcher. I mean, pretty much everything. We are not on Apple Podcasts yet. That has nothing to do with my personal vendetta against Apple. We are going to make it there. It's just taking a little bit of time. There's a process, folks. So hang tight. This episode will probably debut on there. We'll probably be on there before this episode airs. So I'm gonna try to get these like day and date. So when we air them live on Sunday on Facebook, they will be available within 24 hours on all of the audio platforms. Um,
That's awesome. So they're not Vince McMahoning you?
no, they are not Vince McMahon me. I don't have to wait 30 days. Um, or was it 90? Was it 90?
I think it's 90.
Yeah.
90-day no compete clause.
I'll never understand what the purpose was in like a live like serialized program that it's like nobody. I mean, but 30 days later, I mean you might as well not even watch it at that point unless there was just some stellar match on there. I mean, any storyline you might try to watch if you're going to try to get the pay per view on the network. I've just never understood that. It's like I always liked the idea of like the premium subscription to the network where somebody could pay like $29.99 and they could get everything same day. Something like that would have been amazing because a lot of people, nobody wants to bounce to their different sources to get their stuff, right? If I got to watch your show on USA, I'm not going to then have your network and it's like just let me pay one price like Netflix or anybody else. Netflix doesn't you know, give me one season of The Witcher and then tell me I have to go to the theater for season 2 and then there's a movie that in between season 2 and 3 that I got to catch on like Hulu or some shit, you know.
Right.
So,
Well, I agree, but I think a lot of that comes down to contracts.
it is. And
I
ad
mean,
revenue is a huge source of their income right now.
oh yeah, absolutely. But they have those contracts with USA, and then of course they have that big, huge contract with Fox that they signed recently last year, and everything like that. And
Exactly.
I think also that was probably one of the biggest criticisms of the network when it first started, and it probably still is in a lot of ways, because I don't think anyone, because Vince, a lot of the times it seems like he'll just do it. Like he's just like, hey, nope, we're ready. Let's go now. And then probably someone was back there saying, hey, man, you haven't factored in all of this stuff. You haven't factored in the ad revenue. You haven't factored in the contracts with USA. You haven't factored in any of this kind of stuff. So,
And that's kind of the I don't want to get too far into it, but that is sort of the issue today. Is it's like there's this big contract with Fox and all these other networks that they might work with, and they really at this point in time, it's not so much ratings that they're after anymore. They just want content, man. They have to fight off Netflix, they have to fight off Amazon, they have to fight off
Mhm.
HBO, and so you've got this scenario where they really just need content. And for WWE, who puts out 3 episodes of television every single week, pretty much all year of new content, that's a huge get for them. And that's really what Fox wanted out of it ultimately, I think.
Well, they definitely got it, and Fox, to their credit, because I watch a lot of FS1 because one of my, I guess one of my shows that I just kind of put on every day is The Herd and Undisputed, where they talk about sports and stuff like that. And literally, almost every single commercial I see, they are advertising SmackDown.
Yeah.
So they're really behind it.
They are, yeah. I mean, it's theirs to make or break. They have no reason to want it to fail. It's kind of like when Dynamite came to TNT. Everybody was saying, hey, they're immediately playing. They're playing commercials during like the NBA Finals for
Yeah, they were.
Dynamite and stuff. It's like, yeah, I mean, it's a mutual partnership. They don't sign somebody on and then want them to fail. They want you to tune in. They want you watching TNT as much as your eyeballs can stand to watch TNT. Um, that being said, I wasn't going to talk about this, but fuck it. It's season 2. We can do whatever we want. We could do whatever we wanted anyway, right? Uh,
Yeah.
it's our fucking show. So, did you happen to catch the Tyson fight?
Well, I heard a lot about it. I did not happen to catch it, but I've heard mixed things about it. I've mostly heard people are pissed about it.
Yeah, I saw a little bit of that, and man, I really don't get it. I thought so. I'm not a boxing guy, right? So
Right.
this sort of, if you're a boxing fan or something like that, then I don't really have the opinion on that. I don't really. That's not where I'm coming from. But for
I'm
somebody
more
like,
of an MMA guy.
yeah, I mean, and I'm not really a huge MMA fan, but I when Brock Lesnar was UFC champion, I watched every single one of those his title defenses, title matches. If I get into somebody, I also liked Chuck Liddell a lot.
Yeah,
If I get into someone, I will attach to that person. And there's an important lesson for wrestling and just about everything else there too. When
yeah.
it comes to like personality, somebody doesn't have to be a wrestling fan to be a fan of you. And
Conor.
I am a huge fan of Mike Tyson,
Okay.
even though I'm not a boxing person. And so I was like, Mike Tyson's going to fight for the first time in 15 years. So yeah, I'm going to watch it. And I mean, I saw 4 boxing matches, and I haven't watched a boxing match in forever. So I thought they were pretty good. It'd be like if you didn't watch wrestling for 5 years and then you turned on NXT Takeover. Doesn't matter if it was one of the shittier takeovers. You'd be like, man, this is really great action. Um, I will say there were 2 more undercard. There was 3 undercard fights. The one that everybody was talking about was the Jake Paul and Nate Robinson fight, which was not technical at all. You could tell that neither one of them have a ton of boxing experience. I don't think. I think it was Nate Robinson's like first professional fight, and I think it was Jake Paul's third or fourth. And it looked like 2 kids fighting in the lunchroom in middle school. I mean, they were just like throwing, punches, and there wasn't a whole lot of guards and anything. But there was a really nice TKO in that. Um, if there's any complaint I have, it's that there was like a musical performance between each match. So, and you
Really?
you know how annoying that is. Well, there's only 4 fights, and they had to make this thing last, 3 hours or whatever. But I thought that the Roy Jones Jr. versus Tyson fight was iconic, man. I mean, no, nobody got knocked out or whatever, and I guess that's like what you want to see. Everybody enjoys a good knockout, me included. But it was just amazing to see Tyson get in there. I think he's 54 or
Yeah.
51, and yeah, I mean, I wouldn't want to fight him. I don't
No.
know anybody who would want to fight him, you know. Pretty much all the toughest people I know, he would probably knock the living shit out of them. So, he looked like he was 35 in there, man. I mean, and he went 8 rounds. He went the distance, and he looked fine. He looked like he could have gone another 8. So,
Yeah, From the scenes that I've seen, he looked pretty good. I kind of I kind of just want to take the Hangover stance. That did you see that? But man, he still got it.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, and he does still have it. He says he's going to fight again. So I wasn't planning on talking about that, but it is a current hot topic out there. So before we go too far into it,
Actually, if I could, the last boxing event actually that I did watch was before that, and it had probably one of the most controversial decisions I've seen this year. There was a fight, and I can't remember exactly who was in it, but I tuned in, or me and my friend Josh, we tuned into it, and we saw this, and it took them 30 minutes to because they were reviewing if there was a headbutt in the fight, and then they called it a no contest. And they spent 30 minutes, and even the announcers on ESPN who were like, they are telling us to go back like and rewind this for you, so here we're going to rewind it, and they were saying, they're like, we have found no headbutt, there is no headbutt in there, not in there. And it took them 30 minutes, and they still got it wrong.
yeah, I mean, boxing is so technical, man, and there's so many rules, and that is something that kind of did happen in the uh, Jones Jr. and Tyson fight. Is there, there was a lot of like technicalities where the ref would break them up, and they did a lot of grappling and stuff, and they called it a draw, and I think they agreed that it was, unless someone got accidentally knocked out, I think they were going to call it a draw no matter what. Um, and that's fine. A preordained finish is not something that I have a problem with, obviously. Um, but it was a good contest, man. Maybe it's just me looking at it through a wrestling lens of these two mega stars going at it. I didn't need to see anybody die for it to realize and feel like how iconic it was. Um, so I liked it, but before I go too much further, so I want to talk about why we've been on this hiatus, and I kind of like that we were to an extent because it did allow me to get everything situated for us to be an audio and video podcast, and also just doing some housekeeping, taking a little break from doing this new format. Before I never even thought about us doing like season one, season two, so on and so forth. But it just so happened that we had one special edition and 20 episodes that we had done. And I said, that seems like a season, you know, of
Yeah.
TV. And I was like, that's just a great number. So I was like, fuck it, that's season one. You can, it's amazing. I watched and listened I watched like the first 10, 15 minutes and then I switched to the audio for the first and the last episode we did. And it's insane the difference, kind of how far we came from that first episode, from the audio issues to us not really knowing the format of this, like what we wanted to do with it, um, to kind of how where we ended up. Um, so what happened is I got a new desk. If anybody's paying real close attention, my angle here has changed in my house. I have like I've always wanted one of those standing desks. So I've got one that I can adjust the height on the desk. So if I wanted to right now, I could hit a button and the desk would raise up and I could stand and do this. Um,
That's pretty dope.
yeah, it's neat, and it's very expensive, and and it took me about a whole day to put it together and move all my stuff. Um, but once you get it together, I mean, I could never go back from it. Now it's got wheels on it. I can roll it around. It'll collapse to be about that tall. It's heavy as shit, but I mean, it's got wheels on it for a reason. Uh, that being said, I was moving all my stuff. A bunch of my monitors were like bolted to my desk, and it was this big L-shaped desk with like overhead storage and stuff. It just takes forever to take it all apart. And my main monitor that I used for everything, for video editing, this podcast, gaming, like an $1,100 gaming monitor. I set it over there on the couch, and the back of it, where you adjust the monitor height, it had I compressed it all the way down, and for some reason, it just sort of decompressed, and so the monitor went from the smallest, shortest height that you can make it to the tallest. It like instantly, which launched it off of the couch, and it rolled across the floor, and I turned it on, and there's just parts of the screen missing and like red pixels everywhere. And I was so, after like 9 hours of work, of moving everything and putting desks together and all, taking the old one apart and all that, then I ruined my $1,100 monitor. So it is actually still not here. I got a new gaming monitor, and then I was waiting on it to come back because it takes two screens for me to be able to do this. Um, and It's still not back. So finally, I said to hell with it. And I just got a cheap monitor that I could use as a side monitor, so we could start podcasting again. So that's the delay. Uh, um, it's still worth it. I really love my new setup. But Yeah, I am glad to be back. We are here for season two. We are going to do some things. So today, the question is, all right, what are you guys going to cover? So today we're not going to get into. I knew it was going to be a bunch of bullshit. So we're not going to get into a specific topic. We're not reviewing a pay per view. We're going to talk about just kind of how wrestling is right now. I guess this is our state of wrestling, December 2020.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and then before we get into that, we'll finish up with that. But before we get into that, let's talk about our favorite topic here. Nope, not that one, not the one that you use. I'm talking about Dark Side of the Ring. Uh, and That's going to be season three. If you go back to earlier this year, we did a prediction show. You can find that anywhere you get your podcast content. We did a prediction show. We predicted some topics for Dark Side of the Ring season three. And then it got officially renewed for season three. And there have been some leaks out there where we have found out some of what the episodes are going to be. Now, we'll talk about this again when we get to a full episode list. Um, it's interesting, some of the items that have been leaked out. So you ready? You ready for this, Caleb?
I'm ready, man. This is how we, originally started this show. So I'm excited to revisit it again.
That's right. Dark Side of the Ring is our bread and butter. We are avoiding the Owen Hart episode because neither of us wants to watch it again. But we are going to cover it. We keep saying that, but we are going to cover it, folks. It's just I need to wait until I'm in a really good mood and want to ruin it, and
Yeah,
and that's how it is.
that's
So
that. Yeah, that's basically what my issue was with all that was, and it was really because if you think about it, we were just covering so many back to back that after a while, all that dark like energy from those episodes, I guess, were just like really affecting.
yeah,
I don't know about you, but it affected me. Like
yeah.
it put me in a depressed mood. I was like, I can't do this.
Yeah, I mean the second episode we did, second and third episodes, because I mean you guys saw these a week apart, but we did them in one sitting. So we did episodes 2 and 3, and that was the Benoit and Guerrero tragedy. We sat here for 2.5 solid hours, folks, and talked about possibly the darkest thing to ever happen to professional wrestling. I don't know what I did the rest of the day after that, but I probably like drank and watched television and tried to not think about it.
I was the same way. In fact, actually, for me, what it was I believe, if I remember correctly, we did this way. We did the Von Erichs story, and then that night, uh, the Owen Hart episode came out.
Yeah,
And so we did the Von Erichs episode, which is all about suicide, pretty much. and then and then I watched the Owen Hart episode, and literally it was one of those times in my life where I went, I cannot watch wrestling right now. Like, I have to watch something that does not involve death or anything.
Right.
It was just, and plus, 2020 has just been such a weird year for everyone. It's just it really, I think put it all in perspective pretty much.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. I mean, I think, a lot of that was tough to do, but fortunately now we're at that point where we've got Owen Hart. That's the only one I think we're going to do out of the first two seasons. So the
Okay.
new ones we can do as they come out. And we have some confirmed, or at least heavily rumored by very credible sources, topics for season three. So one of the confirmed topics is the fall of Hulkamania slash the steroids trial,
Now that
which
one I didn't hear about.
yeah, so Fall of Hulkamania slash the steroids trial. I believe the steroids trial actually was your pick on the list, was it not, for the for our predictions?
I think it might have been I don't even think that like I had that as one of my picks or as just an honorable mention.
No, it was number 7 on our top 10.
Okay, okay,
Yeah.
okay. I guess
I went back and grabbed the episode. So you guys don't have to go back and watch. I'll just rattle these off real quick. This was our list of what we had, and it's going to be, we didn't know this yet, but it's going to be 14 episodes.
Mhm.
So it's actually possible we could get all of them, because we only picked 10, but we did have some honorable mentions. I don't have the honorable mentions here, but here was the top 10 list, in order. We had China, we had Perry Saturn, Brian Pillman, Test, Mike Awesome, the Lawler and Andy Kaufman feud, the steroid trial, Louis Spicoli, Ashley Massaro, and also the fall of XPW. So that was our 10. And so the steroid trial is on there. Um, One of our honorable mentions that we did have, I know that we talked about this person because we talked about how I had seen him at Dragon Con earlier this year, was Jake Roberts.
Mhm.
Jake the Snake has a very well documented, very troubled past, and but it has a happy ending, though. He has made, leaps and bounds and really like just turned his life around for the better. So that one thankfully has a happy ending, and he can talk at length about it. And he's such a great orator. So Jake Roberts actually and his entire family is one of the topics.
Yeah,
Um,
that one we didn't call was the whole family being involved. Like
yeah,
we just called Jake Roberts. But that's going to be interesting to hear. And if you want to know just how good Jake Roberts is, just go look at the promo he cut on Cody Rhodes in AEW. That's still, to me, it's just every time I see it, I'm just like, oh, it's so good. You've seen that, right?
yeah, yeah. It was fantastic. Yeah. So his dad was Grizzly Smith.
Mm-hmm.
He's apparently going to be covered. And then Robin
Brian,
Smith. What's that?
I think didn't he have a brother named Brian Houston?
Yeah. So it was Sam Houston.
Sam Houston.
He
Sam Houston.
he may have done both. I don't know, but so the leak is for the four of them: Grizzly Smith, Jake the Snake Roberts, Rockin' Robin, and Sam Houston. And so
Mhm.
that'll be very interesting because I know a lot about Jake and a lot about his story, but I don't really know a ton about the rest of the family. So I'll do my research after the episode, and we'll kind of go from there. Um, so that one, I'll give us credit for that one. It was in our honorable mentions. We called Jake Roberts. Another one that's on our list, and this was one that I had on there, and that was, and we both agreed that this would probably be an episode, which is Flying Brian Pillman.
Yep.
That is going to be incredible. I'm really
Yep.
looking forward to that, and I'm sure that they've probably got Brian Pillman Jr. on there to talk about it as well.
Oh, of course.
Yeah, so that'll be good for him. He's such a good performer, such a charismatic athlete, and it'll be great to have him on there, and that'll kind of boost his profile up a little bit because a lot of eyes get, seen on Dark Side of the Ring, and you can also spot him out there in the crowd at AEW sometimes as well with some of the other like indie workers and stuff out there. So very cool on that. The one we didn't call though, and this is the one that this is not rumored. This one is 100% confirmed by the series creators. They will do an episode on the 1995 Collision in Korea event, which was co-promoted by both WCW and New Japan Pro Wrestling.
Mm-hmm.
Now this one I know a good bit about it, but I don't really know if there's like a lot of dirt in the background to be had. I don't really know a lot about that.
I don't know either. And how I first heard about that one was confirmed was Eric Bischoff actually mentioned it on 83 Weeks podcast. And I thought like as I sat there and heard it, I was like, well, I mean, what dark side of the ring pretty much can they come up with that? And one of the things I remember, and this could be something to it, I'm not sure exactly, but Eric Bischoff said that one morning when he was over there, that he went for a jog, just went for a regular jog like he always does here in the States. And he was literally targeted by Korean military people telling him that, like, if you go any further, we are going to shoot you,
Yeah,
basically. So I don't know if that kind of stuff will play into it, but right then and there, that right there is already a story. But he said that like he actually feared for his life at one point. So I'm assuming that there's got to be a lot of stuff that we don't know about that made that event happen, pretty much.
yeah, yeah. I agree. And anytime you have, you know, just two like small to medium size, companies that are going to co-promote an event and do like a crossover, that's
Mhm.
always a huge headache, huge pain in the ass. And if you don't do it right, it can also end up being a huge loss for both companies financially.
Well,
Um,
that and you're also doing it in a foreign country.
right. And we know that this event was not a financial loss. It actually set attendance records. And so, it made a lot of money that we know. Um, but it'll be very interesting to see kind of what comes out of this and what we find out in this episode because these documentaries have been incredibly informative. So you can
Yes.
definitely look forward to us covering all of these.
Yes.
So, um, yeah, man, I'm looking forward to season 3. I don't know what the release date is for it, but we're gonna get 14 episodes. That's 14 free episodes for us that we, don't have to come up with a different topic for. We don't have to cover, Starcade 92 or whatever, and we can kind of go along with it. One thing I want to mention is something that we have wanted to do for a while is cover the AEW pay-per-views as they come out, and we've kind of missed the mark every time. We got it set up to where we could do that, and then they had All Out, and it was awful. And I'm glad we didn't have to cover that. And then they had Full Gear, and we weren't able to record. So
Yeah, because I was about to say Full Gear was the best pay-per-view that they've ever done.
I don't know if I agree with that. I think I still like Revolution more.
Well, I did like Revolution, but for me personally, I loved Full Gear. I loved it from top to bottom. I thought their match orders actually made sense this time. I didn't feel it was thrown together. I loved everything about that.
Well, let's get into it. So, we're gonna talk about kind of the state of wrestling, for the rest of this episode anyway. So let's just go ahead and get into AEW, right? And we could talk about Full Gear because that's kind of that was the thing where everybody was looking for it. Hey, is this going to be another disaster? Because even the hardcore AEW fan base said all right, look, All Out was, I mean, there were safety concerns for the talent. It wasn't even to the point that it wasn't a good show. It was the fact that it was dangerous for the talent. And AEW, I think, has to have a higher standard for their talent and for their athletes than WWE has to. I would
Yeah.
love for them both to have a high standard for that, but AEW came out at the beginning and said, "Hey, this is going to be for the wrestlers. This is going to be the place where the wrestlers want to come work." That wasn't what we saw at All Out. But I don't want to sit here and shit on All Out. That's been done. You can watch that anywhere. Anybody that reviews any of this stuff, if you want to hear somebody shit on All Out for 2.5 hours, tune into Cornette, and he will be happy to do it about All Out or any of their other shows.
I was
Um,
about to say he shits on everything they do.
yeah. So let's talk about Full Gear. So I will start on the negatives because I don't have a long list of those. Um, I everybody knows this that watches this show, right? I hate Kenny Omega. I just do. He's just, to me, the most overrated guy. And I don't want to go off on a tangent on this, but I'm gonna. The man, okay, all right, the trilogy with Okada, right? Amazing. You're never gonna hear me say otherwise, and anybody that says otherwise is a fool.
Right.
But the thing is, Okada has amazing matches with everyone.
Yeah.
Kenny Omega, just because he can do a shit ton of wrestling moves, it doesn't mean that he was contributing to that trilogy equally with Okada. And you'll never convince me that he was. Since he's come to AEW, he is the Roman Reigns of AEW because because and I not to say that he's as bad in the ring as Reigns because he physically he's not, athletically he's not. But I get the same emotion when I watch either of them. Just because he doesn't do 700 Superman punches, uh, I still get the same emotion when I watch either one of them, which is this person is being shoved down the audience's throat, and the audience is in no way asking for it. Because I don't think Kenny Omega has the fan base in America and in the AEW fans that equals his push. I think Adam Page is way more over.
And I can see that, but see that's where I disagree with you. I don't think that he is being shoved down our throats like that. I don't, because if you look at it, he's been in the tag team division with Hangman Page. He's really he's only main evented one pay-per-view. He main evented with Jericho, which obviously it had to be that. And and then well, all right, so I guess you could say that he also main evented it with Moxley, even though technically that's a lights out match and stuff like that. But as far as like him being shoved down throats or anything like that, to me, I don't see it that way, because again, it's not like Roman Reigns, who has headlined like 27 pay-per-views in
I
WWE.
agree. It's not to the same degree as Reigns. I agree with you.
And I think he's overrated to a lot of people because of Dave Meltzer.
Hmm.
That's why I think so. But I think if you were to take away what Meltzer says, then you would be like, well, this guy might not be my favorite or anything like that, but he can go a hell of a lot better than half of the people in this industry.
I think physically, I think he can do the moves. I think the athleticism and the accuracy and the moves that he does are great. But I don't think that he has the charisma to be where he is. And I hate, and maybe Jim Cornette has ruined me, but I hate the jazz hands. I hate the pointing. I hate the fact that he's like that his gimmick is supposed to be that he's like this anime character or whatever. I just I don't I get it and I still don't like it. And I think to the average person tuning into Dynamite, they don't get it at all. Um, and I think there are so many people on AEW that I would rather see in that spot, and I think that's what really does it for me. I get that he's not going anywhere. Don't get me wrong. I'm just one man. It's not like I don't like him, and so they're going to stop using him. If they
Right.
were going to do that, they would have fired everybody when Jim Cornette did his first podcast about AEW. Um,
Yeah.
um, other than Omega, who he has that Cena or Reigns effect on me now, though. Like when I see him come out, I just want to get up and go do something else. Uh, you know, so there's that, and then I also, I like a lot of the things that they're doing. I want them to stop giving Chris Jericho any creative control over anything because Jericho, I love Chris Jericho. He is one of the greatest of all time, if not the greatest of all time. But he is when we talk about him being the GOAT, we're talking about him being the greatest professional wrestler of all time. Is he not? He's in the discussion. You can argue with me about whether he is or isn't the greatest wrestler of all time. What you can't argue is whether he's in the discussion. He's definitely in the damn discussion.
Oh yeah.
Okay. The man is more decorated than anyone. Has reinvented himself countless times. Um, but he does. Someone at AEW needs to be able to tell him no, and I don't think we have that. And if we do, it's Tony Khan, and he's not doing it. Um,
Like, so I'm taking you were not a fan of the dinner debonair.
not at all. And I think they're starting. I think they're starting to ruin MJF
Well, I,
because
I,
MJF should have stayed as that. I don't want to be liked at all. Heel.
right,
Like
right.
he's one of the few left in the business.
Well, and who knows though? Because I think they probably, I think that will eventually end up happening. Like he's still going to be that guy that no one likes and stuff like that. Um, I mean, I wasn't that big of a fan of the dinner debonair. I didn't mind it. I thought it was pretty entertaining for what it was. But I love I'm not gonna lie, I love the Vegas scene. I thought that was hilarious.
Yes. The you mean the like extended like Hangover parody?
Yes.
Yeah, that was amazing. I've watched that like 20 times. I thought it was great. I know that over the years, like Jericho has a certain sense of humor, and maybe it's because he's Canadian. I don't know, but uh, it's just not funny to everyone or nearly everyone. Not saying all his stuff isn't, because like a lot of his stuff is, but I think there's that line where it's like Jericho's like, "Hey, it'd be funny if we did this," and not everybody has good ideas 100% of the time. Most people are lucky to have good ideas 50% of the time.
Yeah.
I think that there needs to be a filter there. Somebody to say, yeah, I don't think that's a great idea. And I just don't I feel like when I watch the show that no one's doing that. There's no Vince McMahon to say, "Uh, what is this? Get this out of here." Last minute, we're scrapping this. Like, I don't want to go back to All Out, but the damn tooth and nail match, right? They had that shit on video, and they still decided to air it. It wasn't like that happened live. Somebody watched that back and was like, "Yeah, let's open the pay per view with this."
Yeah. And I was gonna say that because I was gonna be like, if people keep bringing that up, I'm gonna be like, look, they haven't done it since, so
True.
obviously they know it was a bad idea, and yeah, I think that's my thing though when it comes to creativity in wrestling. Like, I think that like people, if it comes off bad on TV, that's one thing. But you don't know if an idea is really that terrible unless you try it.
Right.
And sometimes some things just don't work out. the dinner debonair is one thing, but like say like you have an angle or a feud, right? I've heard so many people over the years say, well, this feud didn't work out and this angle didn't work out, and they act like that people intentionally try to put on this bad angle or something like that, and it's like, no, I mean, sometimes things just don't work out. The chemistry wasn't there, the idea wasn't there, maybe it was just too rushed, maybe some things happen, it just it's that kind of stuff to where I just feel like that's where people are just a little bit too critical of things. And I get when something is bad. I can watch something and say that was terrible. Like I said, All Out was terrible. And I don't think anyone will deny that. Even AEW, Tony Khan said like he didn't say it right afterwards, but he said it a couple of weeks later. He was like, "Yeah, that just a lot of things just didn't go right for us on that show and everything like that." So, you know, I, that's just my take on it. Is that like if you bring up like the tooth and nail match, and I'm like, well, they haven't done it since then, so and they haven't even
Yeah.
tried to do it.
Yeah, I
Although
mean,
I will admit, you got to admit, seeing Tony Schiavone get waxed was hilarious.
I mean, here's my thing. And I've talked about this on the show before with like one of the good things about AEW is WWE is so controlled.
Mhm,
Everyone's promo scripted.
mhm,
Everything is down to the minute. This guy knows where to put this camera, and this person's going to do this move at that camera at that time, and everything is just so laid out so that it cannot possibly go as terrible as All Out went. If Matt
mhm.
Hardy had taken that fall in WWE, they'd have stopped the match and he'd have been in the hospital within 20 minutes.
Yeah.
I don't care what he would have said. I don't care what the on site doctor would have said. They wouldn't have made a call on it. And that's the right thing to do. Don't get me wrong. But the thing about AEW, if you don't want that insanely controlled environment, and when I listen to wrestling fans who are disgruntled with WWE, which is most of them, they
Yeah.
say, hey, I missed when this wasn't all this controlled and scripted. And, people cut their own promos. Well, guess what? When you take that control back, when you ease that control back, you have now the ability to get some really awesome, unscripted, spontaneous, spur of the moment shit. But guess what? You also have the possibility of getting all out. And so that's what it is. And as somebody that books wrestling shows, I understand. Sometimes you sit down at the table and go, "That's a great idea," and then you put it in front of people, and you're like, "Oh man, that was bad," you know. And it does happen. So I've gone through everything I had to say that was bad about it. I loved yeah, everything Orange Cassidy does except for the mimosa shit. I've loved. Um, Still not a
What'd you
fan of the women's division, but I don't hate it. I can take it or leave it.
What'd you think of the street fight, that parking lot brawl?
Yes, I actually really enjoyed that.
I loved it.
Yeah, I really enjoyed that. I actually liked the Matt Hardy, Sammy Guevara rematch. The Elite Deletion match. Actually enjoyed that for
Yeah.
once. Darby Allen and Cody was fantastic. As Darby
Mhm.
Allen, I think is it's hard to say he's underrated when he's got the mid card title at like second biggest show there is, but somehow I still feel that way.
Yeah, and he's making his way up there. I have a feeling it's going to come down to him and Moxley at some point.
Yeah. Um. Yeah, I
And I
agree.
love John Moxley, by the way.
Yeah, let me tell you who I love. Let me tell you who I really love on this card, and just in general in AEW, Eddie fucking Kingston.
I knew you were going to say that. I love Eddie Kingston as well.
Eddie
He's
Kingston is the
good.
guy, and he's been the guy for a long time. He had a feud with Henry and Evolve, and I don't even have to tell you what that was like.
I
You
bet
can.
it was amazing.
It was. It was. They beat the dog shit out of each other. Uh, Eddie Kingston is the real deal, and that's kind of, I hate to echo Cornette, but that's kind of like, it's like, okay, this segment you've got Eddie Kingston literally talking about killing a man's family, and then you go to commercial break and you come back and the two of the top heels on the show are having dinner and have a singing and dancing number. I just want a little continuity, and I want MJF to be serious. I want him to be so serious that maybe it is funny because he can't, like, no one else takes him as seriously as he does. That's the kind of thing I think would get over well for him. But I just want MJF to be that smarmy, slimy fucking person, and I just think that we're missing that in wrestling everywhere else. And I think he has a very bright future ahead of him, regardless of what AEW does with him here. Um, but he's such a talented guy.
Yeah, I agree. I've liked his work and everything like that. Like we said, Cody. I gotta say though, I did think at Full Gear that match between FTR and the Young Bucks that lived up to everything that it was supposed to be and more. And for anyone who always wants to say, well, the Young Bucks are just a bunch of spot monkeys and stuff like that, I want everyone to go and actually watch that match because there was not that. I mean, yes, they did their Young Bucks spots, but they told a good story. And I love the ending to the matchup because the ending to it was FTR wanted to try to show up the Young Bucks and it cost them.
Yeah,
That's just storytelling 101, in my opinion.
I did not like their previous match at all.
With Omega and Page,
Yeah, I hated it a
yeah.
lot. The Full Gear match, I liked it a lot more. Um, I'm I've said before, I'm not a fan of these like really long ass matches, but I did enjoy the Bucks and FTR.
Yeah.
I really hope that they put the belts back on FTR though and give them a long run. Um, there is a big Dynamite coming up this week. This episode will have already, will air after. So I guess this past week, because this is the big one, right? This coming Wednesday.
I think so, yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, future episode maybe we'll have to talk about that. But we don't do these very often. It's not really our wheelhouse. It is yours. So I'm sure that Stovall Wrestling Network, you can go follow that and take a look at it. You've got a new format over there, right? New co-host and all that.
Yeah, I've got some new co-hosts. I've got Christian Fury, or as I call him, Jay. He comes on, and also we also will also have some stop bys by the survivor of pain, Mr. Bill Blanchard, who you know very well. And actually, it's great that I'm glad that you brought up Stovall Wrestling Network because I'm actually going to be having a lot of brand new changes to the show in general. Because originally, when I first launched that podcast, I wanted it to be, I didn't want it to sound like every smart mark podcast that there was out there where everything is just critical and everything like that. And I've also come to, realize that like I'm just I guess I'm not as big as a fan of the behind the scenes stuff as everyone else because I just want to sit back and enjoy the product like I did, as a child and stuff like that. So on the Stovall Wrestling Network coming up, we're going to actually turn it into the Stovall Wrestling Network, where we're going to be watching a bunch of old time events, and we're mostly just going to be covering events and stuff like that. Not really covering news. We'll probably mention some news though, if it's big enough and stuff like that. But we're just going to be talking about old time wrestling events because I really love going back and watching stuff from 1995, the 90s in general. And I've also been watching a lot of old NWA, some of the 80s, like 86 basically, which was their best year ever.
Yeah, yeah, agreed. Yeah, that's actually really cool. I'm glad you mentioned Bill. I actually just recently did a very lengthy interview with him on his podcast, The Shootout, um, which I thought was really fun. We talked for about 2.5 hours. Time just kind of gets away from you.
Yeah.
So big changes over at Stovall Wrestling Network, big changes over here at Entertainment Evolved. Before we get into this next thing, I think this is a good time to mention that I'm actually going to probably do some short interviews for this season, just as kind of like bonus episodes to get a few people on to do some interviews with. But I don't really want to do kind of what's already out there. There's a
Mhm.
lot of places that are doing really, nice extended interviews. Friends of the show, Suplexes and Microphones, they do a nice long extended interview. Tapped Out Wrestling Podcast does those things. So I'm gonna say I'm gonna try to keep them short. Uh, we all know that when you get to chatting, it doesn't always work that way. So
Yeah.
we'll see. You talked about big news. We had to talk about this. Everybody's talking about this. What did you think of the Undertaker's farewell?
Uh, it was interesting. For one, I watched Survivor Series as it happened, and I didn't think it was that bad of a show, but at the same time, as a lot of stuff didn't make sense on it, like a lot of stuff is right now on WWE. Um, but I really wish that they could have held this off for when we actually had a real crowd, because you just had a bunch of fake Undertaker chants going through and everything like that. And the one thing I'll say about it is I didn't understand why we had all of these separate entrances for these like legends and friends of the Undertaker, and then just all of a sudden they do the Metallica tribute video and then they're gone. Like
Yeah,
that, this nothing. Don't hear from them or anything. I will say this though, I popped hard when the Godfather and the Godwins music hit. I was just like, oh yes, the
yeah,
Godwins.
yeah. I mean, it was definitely Survivor Series as a whole. I'll be honest, I didn't watch it. I read kind of the rundown of what happened, just to be able to make conversation. We've talked about this a ton of times. I hate the crowdless wrestling. I hate that Undertaker didn't get his last match or his farewell in front of people. The Thunderdome's cool, but I'm so tired of the we can't have an audience gimmicks. And don't get me wrong, it's not the company's fault. They can't do anything else right now. Trust me, I'm in the same situation where we can't run a show at all. But
Yeah.
we started this podcast because of this. It is what it is. But I don't have to like it. I understand why it has to be done. I just don't like it.
Well,
Um,
real quick, because I don't even think that we've really talked about the Thunderdome, but I want to get your perspective from a production standpoint. To me, there's too much going on with
yeah,
the lights.
yeah, yeah.
Like to me, it's liable to send someone into an epileptic seizure.
The
That
ideal thing to do at a wrestling show, right, is the beginning of the show. You want all the lights up. You want to pan that camera around. If you have a nice crowd. If you don't pan the camera around with the lights on. But you want to get that big crowd shot, and then you want to turn those lights the fuck off, so that the only thing that's lit up is the ring and the entrance and the places where your cameras need to get shots of what your product is. The Thunderdome is like there's just a little light every meter, and it drives me absolutely fucking bonkers trying to watch it. And
It really does.
I have to force myself not to look at it. Um, I don't know, man. I'm so far from being interested in WWE's product these days. It's like, okay, they're gonna do a farewell thing for the Undertaker. Great. That just means I liked it 20 years ago or whatever. It doesn't mean that I like it now, and I don't. I just don't. I you know I just don't. Edge had his return. I should have been hyped for that. He had to return in front of no one, and he's mostly been stuck with Randy Orton, who is not phoning it in as much as he has, but he still spent like 10 years phoning it in. I just I've talked about this before. It's all filler, and I nothing matters anymore. It's not like something big happens on Raw and then on SmackDown or even on the next week on Raw, like everything is now different because that thing happened. It's like Raw happens, and then the next week Raw happens again, and you don't even need to know what happened last week to care about any of it. You know,
Yeah.
there's no continuity. You could just tune in and watch an episode of Raw, and you would know the same amount as someone who's watching it every week and as someone who's actually booking this shit because no one knows what's going on because it doesn't matter. And it's all dumb. All the storylines are these overly complex, just the wrestling storylines are simple. This guy doesn't like this guy. Then they have a match. Like, you know, um, people don't want these overly complicated stories. So, I definitely tuned in to watch Undertaker's farewell, and I enjoyed that. But also the whole time I was like, if these people weren't in the ring, none of whom pretty much are in active competition, I wouldn't care about this.
Yeah. I agree, but I will say this though, when watching the Undertaker get emotional and stuff like that, I'm not gonna lie, I shed a few tears and everything because when you look at it, it truly is the end of an era of wrestling. You know, he did so much in his wrestling career, and we were alive for mostly all of it.
Yeah.
And he was part of one of the greatest periods in wrestling history, the
S-
Monday Night Wars. I mean, he
Several
was
of
front
the
and
greatest.
center.
He
Yeah, the greatest. And so I'm not gonna lie, I shed a few tears. I also definitely shed a tear when they did the hologram of Paul Bearer.
That was a nice
Um,
touch.
That was, and it was fitting and everything, and you could tell Taker was emotional and stuff like that. But I definitely wish he could have gotten a better send off. And I'm sure people can beat it to hell and back if they want to, but it is what it is. And it's his final farewell. And I truly believe that it is the final farewell. I don't think he's coming back for another match because if you talk to him, he's just like, nah, man, I'm actually glad I'm not wrestling right now. Like he's done. I don't think he wants to go through any more surgeries. I don't think he wants to do any of that. He wants to spend the time that he has with his kids now and his wife now. Because he's even said it, he missed out on a lot. And that's why his first marriage, of course, with the infamous Sarah. And I say that because she was used on a storyline.
And he
And
used to have her name tattooed on his throat.
he did. And then he took that off.
Yeah.
And you could still see the scars sometimes from that. But yeah, like so that didn't work out, and he's got children from that marriage. And he even said that he threw himself so much into the Undertaker character that he neglected a lot of things, which is to be fair, a lot of wrestlers do that. And I don't that doesn't make you a bad person, by the way. That's just how the business is.
Right.
That's just what you do, and you accept that. too. When you're in that business, you're like, no, I mean, this is the life. Ric Flair's even said it. He never thought he was being a bad parent because he wasn't there for his kids and everything. He was just like, no, this is just what I did, kind
Right.
of thing. Like, so yeah, but I do think it is the final farewell. I wish it was on on I guess better terms and everything, but it is what it is. Like you're gonna get what you get in this COVID era, and I want to bring back something real quick because we were talking about storylines in WWE. Why is it that grown men and women cannot just act normal in WWE?
Right.
Why is it that because some of these storylines, I swear to God, is because you hurt my feelings, so I hate you. That is PG. That's kiddie stuff.
Right.
Like it's like, come on, guys. We're like, I think the only thing that I have liked is the Hurt Business.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, and MVP is amazing. I mean, they're
Yeah.
all amazing, but MVP is fantastic, and that I consider Cedric Alexander to be possibly the most underrated guy maybe in the world,
Oh,
as far
absolutely.
as pro wrestling goes.
Oh, absolutely. I admit. I mean, I thought his match with Kota Ibushi in the cruiserweight tournament was one of the best matches I've ever seen.
Yeah, I mean, him and Samoa Joe on the Indies forever ago, one of the best
Yes.
matches I've ever seen. I got to see it with my own two eyes, and I just won't. I mean, I'll never forget it. It was amazing,
Yeah.
amazing, amazing. Just words cannot explain. And those are two of my favorites, and they always have been. I've also been in the ring with the man, so that also makes me a little bit attached as well to anybody I've had the pleasure of working with in person. And I'll tell you too that Cedric was one of the most professional people I've ever worked with. For someone as talented as he is, it would be very easy for him to have a big ego, and rightfully so. But he was just a consummate professional. Absolutely, um, just from the time that I met him and shook his hand to the time he left the building, fantastic to work with. So yeah, agreed. I kind of want to just see their segments and nothing else.
Yeah, I agree. And we talk about the state of wrestling real quick. That's not WWE or AEW. MLW recently just returned.
Yep. And
And
NWA is also coming back.
yep, they're coming back, and Ring of Honor is back as well. And Ring of Honor to me has really hit a home run, bringing back the Pure Championship. Because if you really want like where you're gonna get a wrestling match, like a pure wrestling match, then you watch the Pure title tournament, or you just watch anything involving the Pure Championship with those pure rules. It is amazing. I love that. And and I think I've mentioned it before on here that that's my problem with AEW. First of all, I'm a huge AEW mark, especially ever since Atlanta. But that was my thing is that's why I don't like segments on there like the dinner debonair or the tooth and nail match, because that to me does not scream sports based product.
And that's what they said they were going to be, you know,
Exactly.
with the rankings and all that. And you see how quickly that has faded.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree with you. Speaking of Ring of Honor, I feel like I know the answer to this question, but I'm going to ask it anyway, because this is a two-part question. Uh, what are
Okay.
your thoughts on Jonathan Gresham, and did you ever get to see him live when he worked in this area?
I did not get the chance to see him. Oh, no. I did. I saw him at center stage for Ring of Honor when I went up there for the TV tapings.
Gotcha.
And he was amazing then. And I absolutely love Jonathan Gresham in ROH. I kind of I like the octopus
Yeah.
face mask that he comes out with. First of all, you know me, I'm a Ring of Honor mark. I've always loved their presentation of wrestling because I've always said that even when they try storylines, to me it's like they have that sports based product, and their announcers call it like a sport and stuff like that. And so I've always been a fan of Ring of Honor, and I like Jonathan Gresham. And he is now the brand new pure championship, or pure champion rather. And he got it in a in an amazing match with him and Hot Sauce Tracy Williams,
Hmm.
who kind of looks like Finn Balor's illegitimate twin brother. But
It's crazy. I don't know if you know this, but Gresham has actually worked, like, not in the last few years, but around like the 2010 to 2013 era. Jonathan Gresham worked probably, I don't know, 15 shows in like the Augusta area, like
really,
smaller shows and things like that. Yeah, he actually, if unless I may be thinking about the show that they had at the Armory in Thompson, but I'm pretty sure Gresham has actually wrestled in Sweetwater at one of like the fall brawl events that they had there
I
back
think
then.
he did. I think he's wrestled a couple of times for Fireman, didn't he?
Yeah, yeah. So that it's just it's crazy who you work with one day and they're on the big stage the next. So yeah, I
Yeah.
mean it's just this is why you support indie wrestling, folks. You go out, AJ Styles is from Gainesville, Georgia. Yeah, a town nobody's heard of. So go out to your local indie show because you never know if you're gonna see that guy next week on WWE or AEW or wherever. Any of the number of places that you can make a living wrestling today. But
Well, speaking of which, real quick, because I know we're probably about to wrap things up, but I have to ask you this because you being a WCW fan like I was, what did you think of NXT's Halloween Havoc?
so this is disappointing, and I probably should have my podcast bars stripped off my jacket for this, but I haven't seen it.
Oh, you haven't seen
I
it?
I haven't seen it. I didn't watch it. Yeah, I remember hearing they were gonna do Halloween Havoc, and let me tell you, this is like you have to be familiar with Viral Pro to get this. So to my folks that don't know anything about that are listening, I apologize, but we had the pumpkins at our event that were
Yeah.
reminiscent of the Halloween Havoc from back in the day, and that's where I got the idea, and we had so many problems with them. Uh, they have these pumps in them that keep them inflated, and whenever the pumps would come on, they drew a ton of power instantly from the building, which caused us to have all kinds of problems. Um, and so I think my brain just like associated that with Halloween Havoc and was like, I'm not gonna watch this. And so for whatever reason, I remember thinking it was awesome they were doing one, and I didn't watch it. So why don't we do this? Why don't we put it on the docket for season 3?
I'm down. I'm
Right
down to
here.
watch that again.
Right here. Spontaneous episode decision, folks. We'll we'll put it on the docket for season 3, so not only will I watch it, but we'll analyze it top to bottom.
I'm down to watch that again because I'm just gonna say this: Shotzi Blackheart is the stealer of the show.
All right. Well, I'm up for it.
Just and all she does is host, but the way that she does it, I mean, she just gets so into it that I'm just like, I have to give her a standing ovation for it. But I liked it. It was great.
I'm down for it. There
All
you
right.
have it, folks. New episode announcement. Um, that being said, it is it's getting a little late in the episode here, so we'll go ahead and wrap this up. I do want to state once again that if you like this program and you're used to watching it on Facebook or YouTube, definitely continue to watch it on those places. We love to come to you in video form. But if you want to listen to us in the car or wherever, you're welcome to find us on Google Podcasts. You can find us on Stitcher. You can find us on Anchor. Um, you can find us on Spotify, which is actually where we're getting a lot of listens. I think we're getting the most listens from there right now. And we are going to come to Apple Podcasts soon and several other platforms. If you've got a platform that you listen to your podcast on all the time and you want to see us on there, drop us a message on Facebook. That's the easiest way to get in touch with us. And, I'll get us on there, unless there's some crazy barrier to that happening. That being said, we talked about this as well. All those places I just named and more, because you've been on all these for a while now. You can also hear the Stovall Wrestling Network, who, you guys are just changing up the format over there. And I'm going to let you plug the other one here.
Yes, the Power Rangers Go podcast. Me and Ace haven't been able to get together in a minute, but we're gonna definitely have to continue doing that. I've got a lot going on right now. I'm in the process of starting a brand new job and moving and stuff like that. So a lot of pieces have to fall into place and everything like that. But yes, please go and check out the Power Rangers Go podcast. Mr. Kitchens over here has appeared on that as well. And literally, we're just going through every single Power Rangers episode ever. And it's a lot of fun. A lot of fun.
Absolutely. Check that out. This is an Evolved review. We got season 2. It is going to be insane. We have a ton of episodes lined up. You just heard one announced here. We're going to do NXT's Halloween Havoc. Dark Side of the Ring, whenever the hell it comes back on. We're ready for it. This has been an Evolved review. Thanks, everyone.
Yeah.